Hello, beautiful creatives. This week I have another demo for you using Turner Acryl Gouache. So it's their acrylic gouache. And I gotta say, even though in most of my paint sets I have all these gorgeous colors, tons and tons of colors, I really have settled into a split primary palette with a warm and cool of each color. And I'm finding that's where I am most comfortable working nowadays, is to just use a limited palette, have a mother color. I showed you in a previous video, talked about mother color. I just feel like it's really making my paintings more cohesive, and there's a unity of color that comes across that brings the paintings together. So once in a while, you'll see me, like in this video, I think I put pastel olive and greenish gray in my, I put it out on my palette, but I don't think I really ended up even using them. I just kind of mixed my own colors and stuck to that. This sketchbook actually only has 2 more pages left to do, and then I will be doing a sketchbook tour on this book, and I still have these 3 sketchbooks to do. Some of these are more expressive sketchbooks. Like, let's see, this one, I think the ones that I've been showing are more considered sketchbooks. I think this one is more of a complete mix of just scribbly, scratchy stuff and some not very impressive stuff, and then some better work. So maybe I should do one of those next, since I've been doing the more polished sketchbooks. So maybe if I remember, I'll do that one next. And then I have those 2 and this one to go through. So I've got some videos, some sketchbook tours ahead for you guys. But for right now, I'm really enjoying the gouache, and I hope that you enjoy this demo. The colors I'm using are permanent yellow deep, yellow ochre, permanent red, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, crimson, burnt umber, pastel olive, and grayish green, and also white. And it's Turner Acryl Gouache, so it's their acrylic gouache. And in here, I've mixed up yellow ochre with some permanent yellow, I think. I'm not sure if I added some brown to that. Unfortunately, I was trying to make it so that you guys could see the colors that I was mixing. I had a really hard time getting my camera position right this time, but there's like a mother color pile of a darker color just up beyond where you can see. You will see my mixing palette at the end, so you will see that color, but that's just my darkest color. So I'm laying in some greens for the closer up trees, and there's going to be multiple layers of colors over this, so you'll just see me fooling around with mixing some different shades, all from the same color of greens. So again, incorporating that idea of a mother color, sort of uniting everything. I mean, to the extent that when I start mixing the sky later, you will see that I actually even mix some of the green into the sky color and into the watercolor later on. So I'm adding some blue, some yellow ochre, and I believe I even add a little bit of brown. There it goes. Yep, some of that, what was that, burnt umber, to make a really dark color. That blue and brown make a beautiful dark, and then when you start adding the yellows, you get a gorgeous, gorgeous dark green. So here I'm just putting in some strokes. I want the strokes to be really expressive, so I'm trying not to go over them too much. There's my reflection. Just representing evergreen trees, but very, very loosely. And I'm going to paint around these later with the sky and the water, so they'll get reinstated. I end up going, I think, with an even darker dark on them. So right now I'm just sort of getting my base colors laid in, knowing that I may make changes to those colors later. Kind of putting in a bluey green color for distant mountains in the background. Occasionally washing my brush, but often leaving it dirty so that the colors mix together. And just, when I say leaving it dirty, I mean just wiping it off on a rag that I have in front of me and then kind of going back into the colors. Still just working on expressive strokes, laying down expressive strokes for that row of trees on the other side of the river. When you see me do a circle like that with my brush, I'm trying to think of what my next move is going to be, and I'm just sort of keeping my brush moving while I'm thinking off the paper, and I do that quite frequently. Sometimes I edit it out because it goes on for a while, but I left a few of them in so you could see me thinking. I put some burnt sienna in for that distant bank color, and I'm putting some into the background to sort of spread the color throughout the painting. The burnt sienna in the Turner acrylic gouache was very red. So what I then did, you just saw me go back into the burnt umber, or was it raw umber? I forget which I had out there, but to darken that, mute that red down a little bit. I felt like it was a little too red for that dark line along the distant bank. The other thing about those lines, when you put in that dark shoreline on your distant shore, you want to break it up. You don't want to draw a straight line. You want to do it in a few different strokes to sort of break it up. And also, if you end up putting the water highlight in there with white towards the end, you want to do the same with that. You don't want a straight white line. You want to sort of break it up if your goal is to create an expressionistic, sort of expressive, loose landscape like this. You want to really try to avoid a lot of straight lines. I'm trying to get this front bush in, and as I laid in more color, I realized that my dark values, and this often happens, I realized that my dark values were not as dark as I thought that they were. So I end up going in and darkening those distant pine trees more, and this front bush. Actually, even after I thought the painting was done, you'll see in the very end that I did go back in and darken it. Just still playing with laying in that first foundation of color. Oh, Don is out on the deck. I told him I was going to do a voiceover, and he just went out on the deck and is unscrewing screws on rotten deck boards. So I hope that's not going to come out on this voiceover too bad, but not too much I can do about it. Okay, and again, I'm working out reflections of that closer set of trees. Now, a helpful note, Christine Lashley taught this in a class that I took with her many years ago. And I found it confusing at first, but it has been so helpful for me as the years have gone by. Reflections are always less than. So if your trees are dark, the reflect or whatever is being reflected, but let's just say trees since we're working on a landscape. So if your trees are dark, your reflection is less dark. If your trees are very chromatic, they're brightly colored, the reflection will be less brightly colored. So whatever it is that the trees or the item on the shore is, it will be less than in your reflections. Now, when I'm laying in the water, I'm towards that distant bank where the heavy reflections are, and that distant bank of trees would be shading that bit of water because we're assuming that the sun is going to be coming from that direction where you see the sky. So I'm painting the darker blues along that part of the river. And then I'm letting the light, the whiter part, reflect more towards the part of the river that is on the shore that's closer to you. And it's very effective, actually, as far as portraying light. And again, when I'm doing these are very expressive, very intuitive landscapes. Now, although I am actually doing this as a master study, and I think the name is Earl Haig. I do show the name later on in the video, but I'm not sticking to it. A lot of this is imaginary, so I'm really making decisions as I go along out of my imagination. Now, this is a study, it's play. So if I was actually going to turn this into a painting, there are a lot of things that I would need to consider more carefully, like my light and light source, my shadows, how my shadows and highlights would fall. I am considering it a little bit because I've painted for so long. I have an intuitive sense for these things that I don't have to think about too much. But when I do a quick, this study took me less than 20 minutes. So when I do something very quickly, especially when I'm filming it, I don't take a lot of time to pause. So when I look at it afterwards, I often look at, see things that I would change or that I would have done differently. And that is what is so valuable about doing these studies, is you learn so much, especially if you move quickly. When you're done, you can sort of sit back and look at them. And because you've moved quickly, you still get that really expressive feel, but you also learn a lot about the process. Just mixing up some more greens, and I'm constantly shifting my greens to give it a layered effect. And I don't want to get a lot of detail in there, and that's the tricky thing with these loose landscapes, is you tend to want to futz and lick the canvas with your paintbrush, they say, but you don't want to put too much detail in. You really want to try to keep it as much as possible to large blocks of color with some expressive brush strokes in there, and try to move your brush quickly and expressively, and that gives so much energy to the painting. Right there, I was trying to decide how far up I wanted that closer bank to go. And if you've noticed, I've taped off my paper with 2 pieces of tape on the top and 3 pieces of tape on the bottom. I wanted to weight the bottom, and you'll see later on in this painting I end up removing a piece of tape from the top because I decide that I want more sky and to even out the composition. But you can already see that sense of light coming through that closer shore with that lighter blue there. And here I'm hitting that bush again. I realized that my value wasn't dark enough, and it will go even darker later on in the painting. It's sometimes hard to get those when you're starting out laying in color. It's hard to believe how dark you need those darks. And I often am a little shy with my darks and need to go back in and darken them up later on. And this really, what I'm doing here is just sort of looking at it and intuitively popping in color in areas. This really, that part, when you see me kind of going in and dabbing here and there, moving throughout the painting, I'm trying to move color throughout the painting so that it's represented evenly throughout the painting. Maybe I'm making little marks to try to direct the eye through the painting, but I'm not giving it a lot of thought. It's very intuitive, very expressive. Here I'm putting in those sort of white highlights that you see near the dark edge of water. Again, it's something that's very easy to overdo, and I actually think I did overdo it a little bit, but I do think I go back later and knock it back a little bit. And when you see me doing that, I'm just wiping my brush on a rag. I'm actually not always even dipping it in the water. I have kind of a rag that you can't see in the foreground. And, there is a lot of value to a dirty brush in helping you to keep that mother color sort of going throughout the painting. I think I say that a lot, but I'm a huge fan of mother color. Now that little area that dark area that I popped in past that little peninsula sticking out, I think I was thinking that was going to represent something sticking up out of the water. And the second I put it down, I regretted it. I think I go back and soften it a little bit later on, but I don't take it out. And because I was working so quickly, something else that I might actually even go back to do later on is, you see how I did that reflection of that little peninsula. I sort of, brought it down and then did a horizontal swipe against it. I wish I had done that a little bit to those dark tree reflections. It's not entirely necessary, having that not there. See, this is where I I decided to take that piece of tape off because I wanted more sky to even out the composition. But I wish I had made a little bit of blue smudging across those dark trees, just to show the surface of the water. Again, if you do that, you're showing movement in the water, and I was trying to represent very still water here, so you do have to be careful with that. And I'm blocking it a light blue, just to get the sky blocked in, and then I'm going to darken the top of it as I go. I'm mixing up a little bit of green, believe it or not, a very yellow, muted green. It's meant to be representative of sunlight, but I'm allowing a little green to go in there. Now, when you add yellow for sunlight to a blue wet sky, it's going to go a little green on you, and skies do have green in them. They do. People often struggle with that, but yeah, so that's what I'm warming the sky up towards the bottom and cooling it off and darkening it towards the top. And as I go along with this sky, I end up putting some dirty areas of color in, just to try to represent maybe some darker areas of sky, like a little bit of darker underneath area of clouds. And again, all very intuitive. All I know that I'm doing in this is I know that I want my yellower colors to be towards the bottom. And actually there, I just took a streak of that yellow green and just sort of moved it quickly through the sky, just for expressiveness, like maybe the bottom of clouds. Grabbing some darker green to put in with those trees, experimenting with having some, instead of sort of doing round mound trees, with having some branches stick out. Really love these evergreens. Now I'm making these evergreens taller into the wet sky. So of course that's dulling down my dark colors. So it's sort of a back and forth between where I want the tree branches to be and where I want the sky to be. I'm knocking down that distant tree to look smaller and more in the distance, but then I'm going to go back with some darker color when that sets up a little bit and make the trees darker again. Adding a little touch of reflected, green color there. Maybe it's a reflection from the sky. Maybe it's just a stray reflection from those trees back there. I want to be careful that I don't darken that forward area up too much where I put that reflection, because that white is very effective. It's actually not white, it's very light blue, but it's very effective in saying that the sun is shining there and it's more shadowy behind. Sculpting some of those trees with the sky color behind it. Very near finished at this point. Very glad that I took that extra piece of tape off the top. I think it really needed that extra sky. And here is the exciting tape pull at the end. But after this, I actually do go back and darken that bush. I don't think I did it on camera, but I'll show it to you. You'll see at the very end that forward bush has been darkened. This is my Stillman and Byrne Zeta sketchbook. I always forget to tell you what sketchbook I'm working in. I think I only have 3 pages left in this one. And there it is. And actually, this is before I darkened that front bush a little more. So it was Earl Haig, Haig, Master Study with Turner Acryl Gouache. And there's my palette at the end. And you can see I really didn't use that pastel green and that gray green. I really ended up preferring mixing my own greens. But I didn't have a ton of paint left over. Try really hard not to waste paint. There's the darkened bush. That's what I'm pointing out there. So I like that much, much better. It needed to be dark to bring it forward. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember, below the video there are coupon codes for different products. There are links to different products on all my videos, all kinds of information in the video description area below the video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful creative week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.